All newer equipment. The current stuff that we have now is 12 years old.
Yeah, so we'd have to be,
computer-based.
we're in the replacement business of dispatch anyway.
Yep.
So we'd have to get a new board over there in the next couple of years.
Yeah. Our last system, our low band system, we had for 35 years. With technology, they say 15 years now. And we're going on 12.
Interesting. Could that stuff be moved over for now, and we could save some money on the screens? I know you got screens all over the
Yeah.
place because every camera in town
Goes
points
back
to
there.
there.
And that's part of what we're doing with the Marcus Communications, reallocating some of that equipment down there where utility want to just put all new
Okay.
and not recycle. So I use the word recycle, but bring some of our stuff down there.
Okay.
Through Marcus, and they've showed us ways to save money versus having Marcus run the whole project.
Right.
We can buy the furniture ourselves and save half the price.
Right.
So,
Great. Thank you. Other questions for Chris while we have him?
Well, yes, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So, one of the concerns that was raised at one of the meetings was the propagation of the signal through trees, trying to do line of sight to other existing towers. So you're saying with the fiber optic, does that avoid that whole problem and
Yes.
situation completely?
because we can basically use our dispatch center as a mobile radio in a car, to think about it that way. I mean, we can get the signal out, we can use the PSTN, because it controls certain things in dispatch, like priority talk and smaller things. If one of those lines get broken, we'll lose some small features, but that's nothing that can't get fixed right away. Being on the PSTN network, we get stuff fixed. We're first shot to get stuff fixed. So it might be down for a short time. Dispatch won't be down. We'll still use our radios, it'll work fine. But just some of the smaller features will be limited for a little while.
So this alleviates that concern about the propagation of signals from that location?
I gotta say that fellow, from what I've heard,
Yeah.
is maybe a little misinformed, with due respect,
Yeah.
that
He
he
thought-
created an issue that actually never existed.
Okay.
You would either put a tower up that would work, or you'd go into this new idea, but there was never really an issue about trees and foliage, and we'll never get the signal out.
He was on a total different
Well, if I
radio that
could-
we
I
don't
could-
use at all.
In this occupation, especially with electronics and as they're going now, 3 or 4 years or 5 years out of it, and it's a whole, things have just changed so much.
Technology,
And technology is just moving quicker than we can keep up with it.
5 years, you'd be using your cell phone for everything, I think,
I
unfortunately.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Good question, Dan. Anything else from Mr. Taylor?
No, but I have a couple for our
Okay,
committee
thank
chairs.
you, Chris.
So in the course of your research, did you actually go on site and tour, other new police stations?
You have to speak up into the mic so we can broadcast this.
I have been through Old Saybrook, through several, yes, to answer your question.
Old Saybrook, Clinton?
I did not go through Clinton. The chief has. I went through Ledyard.
Tom went through.
Tom went through 4 or 5 at least, maybe 10. So yes, we have toured other police stations.
And those are all state-of-the-art newer facilities.
Generally, yes.
And in your opinion, this property could match or be better than that?
This property is perfect for a police station. Just the way the building is built, it has features such as an entryway for vehicles to create a sally port for transfer of prisoners. It has a concrete room on one side that can be perfect for an armory. It's literally perfect for a police station. The office space is easily maneuvered the way the building is set up. We don't have to move loading walls. We can just change the way it's laid out. There's a lot of synergy to it that makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
Separate entrances too is what the architect was really pleased about, because you can't mix police business with municipal business. So there's really a really defining wall, a place where you would separate municipal from
That
police.
5,000
and-
square feet, on the right-hand side, if you look at it as its own doorway. So
Yeah.
we can literally harden off the police
Separate
end.
entrance, separate hours, and all that. Meanwhile, you can walk in and dispatch will be there for the police side. And many, many, many other features that are just already built into this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions?
Can you give us a quick rundown to what the 3.2 million would be potentially allocated for? So you have the EOC move. You would move the EOC.
Moving EOC dispatch Basically, what we have to do is, for the police station, we have to create locker rooms for both sexes. There's a hardening of the building as far as, we need security, new security for the police. You can't just walk into the police station, the back end of it, so we need that. We need security cameras. Basically, fitting out of a police station. The office part of it, I think very little of it is really that. There's also building the sally port, building the holding cells, that kind of thing.
I have some others that I have online.
The road is gonna be, there's some work.
The
on-
road in the back,
right.
the electronics of the building, it's not just dispatch electronics, it's police electronics as well. Hold on, I'm just trying to bring,
Yeah, I don't have
we're
a list in
bringing,
front of me, but-
we're bringing the East Lyme water line to the building for future needs of sprinklers and that. We need safety glass on the first floor, security locks on all doors. Other safety precautions like bulletproof glass in the lobby area, that's a standard. A PSDN line is not cheap to run. We think it's a $35,000 project. Weapon lockup, evidence storage, record storage, which is very important. Some furniture, Honeywell is leaving a significant amount of furniture. They're also building codes and standards for public safety building. We're hoping to put an elevator in to make the building fully ADA compliant. We are grandfathered in, but while we're doing this work, we'd like to do that. The second floor is accessible through a door on the building is kind of on a ledge, if you will. The back is built up to the second floor, so we could have an entrance that way for wheelchair access. However, we'd like to have an elevator considered when the architect is going through this. And there's some other items as well, just for that.
So there's a lot of hardware costs in here, there's a lot of moving costs. So this is different than what we did with the schools. The schools, we were renovating sick buildings, essentially, so.
And keeping the same purpose, we're repurposing the building,
Yes,
essentially. Yeah.
so I've been through there, the office space looks like if anything, you just need to add temporary walls or take walls down.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
So a
in
lot
great
of this
shape.
is the hardware and the,
Correct.
in the business
Security.
of, that's how I see that. Okay, how would this, if this gets approved all the way through, what's the anticipated timeline? Do inspections have to be done?
Yeah.
Like a building inspection?
Oh, sure.
Right. So what would you anticipate being the closing date and the next steps if this gets through a town vote?
If it gets through a town vote, at that point, the first thing we could do, we'd have to do the vision committee and decide, get the architect come in and do a hard architectural survey of it, so we know we'll have a specific item list of what we need to do in a timeline. It's really hard for me to say until that happens.
Right. So
But
we have
when
to
would the
close.
anticipated closing
We
date
have to
be?
close by contract, close 60 days after the referendum, or no later than May 30th, I believe.
Yes, May 30th.
Actually, it's May 30th, and it doesn't matter when we have the referendum. That was not a hard date. But May 30th, so we'll go through any inspections that we'll need. So the referendum will also provide us money to do any of the inspections we need. Phase 1 and Phase 2 have been done already. Or Phase 1 has been done, no need for Phase 2. I think that's how that works.
Okay, so
And we will have that certified. That's been performed already by the seller. We'll have that certified to make sure it's in our best interest. And any other thing that we might need to have tested in good faith, and get our financing in order to.
I was
be
gonna say
able to
bonds
close.
will be able to, 60 days is enough for bonds to be issued?
Yes. We wouldn't be issuing bonds, we'd be issuing short-term loans.
Short-term loans to get to the,
And
yep.
we have that, and that will be enough time. We've been assured. From that, yes, architect, and then blueprints and engineering get involved, and then hiring, the RFQ
Construction.
for a builder, and go out and build. So we anticipate still be a 9-month process.
Okay.
At best.
Conservatively.
How quick do you anticipate we could get the police out of our building if we were to purchase this, closing on
That long.
May 30th?
Even
If it's for temporary to get them out of this situation, is that something?
Well, the problem is, to put them in temporarily, you'd have to be moving them around constantly as you're building. I mean, it'd be easier to just do this, do it right, and move them in one shot. I mean,
Oh, I agree, but the construction could take a while, it could take a year. Do you anticipate that the police
You
would be
still
able to?
can't move them in because of the they still have to be in communication. There's still
Yeah, it's-
evidence lockup that
Fair
needs,
enough.
everything needs to be secure.
It's not something we can do in stages, really.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna get it done and then move them over, and they're gonna be, if there's a way that we can move them in as the back part of the project is going on, or some other, if we do them first and then dispatch, and then we could probably do that, but a lot of that is integrated. You can't,
I was just gonna say, it's all integrated as
All
far as
the
the electronics
electronics.
are in the base, so you're basically starting from scratch and building everything up, so it's, it's like building a bathroom, you have to put the plumbing in, and then do everything else first before you put the drywall in, and so
Right.
if you have them in, you can't have them in while you're putting the plumbing in, because there's no drywall and
Right.
that kind of thing. It's just,
Okay.
it would be
And
difficult.
how long, do we have an idea of how long an architect will take to go through this?
You talked to him recently.
Boy, he was really quick when he came through the building and gave us a schematic.
Quick.
The vision committee is going to sit there and say, "This is what we want." He already has the design on his. Although we haven't hired that particular architect, if we would go out for bid, but assuming it's a top architect, I don't think it would be very long at all, because we're talking about the space needs are right in front of them, and the building's
Right.
already done, and we're not asking for total rebuild.
And this is what he does, is design police departments, so
Exactly, okay.
it's
yeah.
pretty easy for him to do
That part will be quick. I think the engineering and the actual design, the blueprint design,
Yep.
takes some time,
A little
as
bit longer.
you can well imagine, right?
Yep.
And in that period, we would be running out RFPs or RFQs for a
I think
builder.
we need the blueprints to do that,
Right.
but yeah.
But
Okay. I'm just trying to get the timeline. We just went through this with the school, so I kind of
Yeah.
understand some of that now.
And a little different, because obviously we gave them over $100,000 to hire an architect years prior to going to the, we did things a little different with the schools, right?
Yep.
There was a lot of money spent before we decided we were even gonna do this project.
Right. And there was a lot more unknowns with the schools.
Indeed.
That's all I have right now.
okay.
Questions, Mr. Daigle?
So the current purchase and sales agreement is signed,
Yes.
and there is a due diligence period in there for testing and inspections to determine if there's any hidden costs that we haven't assessed
Yes.
based on the architect walking through.
Any building design issues or environmental issues or any added costs of the project are in there as well.
Okay. Regarding the vision committee and the process to authorize the 3.2 million, do they authorize it and then the town building committee is responsible to go execute it?
Yes.
Or do they make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Selectmen authorize the expenditure of funds?
It's a good question, and I try to figure out a way to do this to the referendum and then go back to selectmen and finance again for final approval. It can't be done because it's not, the money will already be appropriated. So then the appropriation needs to be administered. And the vision committee would be in charge of administering that.
And they'd be
Yes.
authorized as a vision committee to administer that via the referendum or via authorization by the Board of Finance or the Board of Selectmen? What's the process to say they're authorized to go spend $3.2 million? I trust the process of putting
That's a lawyer
representatives from everywhere,
question.
but,
We've already talked about the process, and Mr. O'Connell is good with that. We've done it before in different formats. Who I think would be the Board of Selectmen that appoint people to committees. So we would give them that. Just thinking that out, we are the ones who do appointments.
If
so
I
we
could go
would give
back
them
to
that.
when,
Yep.
decades ago, when I was on the Board of Ed, and we had the middle school
Right.
vision committee, that was a committee that, because that was under the Board of Ed, the Board of Ed appointed that committee, and it was voted, the members were, a presentation was made of the people, and it was voted on by the board for that.
I don't see it as being any different than what we did with the police subcommittee.
Right.
different than what?
the police subcommittee,
Well-
to go to independence?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. But different, it's a building.
Well, it
And
is a-
money is involved versus personnel and policy.
That committee made a recommendation and
Yeah.
identified the costs of what it would take to go to a full-time police department. This one here, we have an estimate of 3.2 million, and this vision committee, as you see it, will decide if it's going for the plate glass window, is it going for, they'll
Yeah,
decide
yeah.
how it gets divvied up.
Prioritize and with help of police standards and,
Right.
yeah, exactly.
Those are the only questions I had. I can say, the amount of, I guess we'll wait until questions are done, then we can
Sure.
go from there.
Any other questions for the committee, or should we have some more
I-
discussion, or?
I have a question for the chief of police, if he could.
Sure. Chief Finkelstein.
So one of the aspects to this, and we talked a lot about the numbers and the infrastructure, but we haven't commented that much about morale. And my question to you, and I know you have a lot of experience with the police forces before you came here. How does having how does the facility affect the morale of the police force?
I think it weighs in greatly. I think, coming into a building on a daily basis that has the smell that this building has, it has, water stains everywhere, or every time it rains, your office or your work area or the floors, doors are all going to have water there. Certainly has a deterioration of the morale and, the really the feeling of self-worth that the officers have. So I think the current building is definitely a detriment, and that has a trickle-down effect on the ability to provide a better work product. I think happy workers that work in a safe, secure, healthy environment certainly perform better than ones that are working in subpar conditions. So I think it's definitely has an effect.
So would it be your opinion that having a respectable building that is more than adequate and meets all the needs of the police department, do you think that has an effect on the day-to-day operations of the officers
I
that are
certainly
on the
do.
field?
Yes, I do.
And do you feel that's important?
I think that's a hugely important aspect of my job as an administrator, of overseeing our officers. The fact of if they are of that mindset, they're going to provide a much better work product.
Do you think that helps to keep them safer if they have a
I
good
do.
facility?
Yes.
Thank you.
Could I just follow up on that?
Sure.
So you just, when you were in Ledyard, you went through this process,
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
So you probably saw some of that. I mean, they were in a very small building before.
It was almost I hate to say, it was almost an identical situation to what you're dealing with here. We were for 15, actually almost 20 years in a temporary facility. It was a almost over 100-year horse barn that was built into a business that, we had hay in the ceilings that was falling down. Very, very similar flooding issues. So there's a lot of parallels to the situation that was faced over there to the one that's being faced here. So, and actually, it's almost identical space size, for the old facility that was there. So, it's definitely saw a huge increase in morale in Ledyard when it happened. And I hate to say too, you look around southeastern Connecticut or just eastern Connecticut in general, we're the only police department that is in a facility such as this. Every other police department and all the police officers work in facilities that were designed and built to be police departments, not only for the safety issues, but also the issue of providing and performing the job they're meant to perform.
Okay. And do you have any, I did tour that facility and it was impressive. And then coming back to our place was quite a eye-opening experience. What I thought was interesting, which was really nice, which is what we'll have here, is a dispatch. Everything was right there. I don't know if you had that with the old building before, but I mean, could you just talk a little bit about efficiency? I mean, I know you could be on the road of.
Well, sure, but synergy of operations certainly has benefits. As the fire marshal was discussing, an incident that's happening, and myself as the chief or the shift supervisor being able to walk into dispatch is a huge piece of the operations. Right now, we can't do that. The dispatch center is 5 miles away, plus in Flanders. So that isn't available to us. There's no other police department that operates that way, where you don't have the ability to walk into dispatch, listen to the phone call that they're on, see what's going on, hear the real-time information rather than hearing it from your car or from your office. So that communication aspect is huge, but there's so many operational efficiencies to having everything together. You know, currently, and some people may not think this is a big deal, but your arrest warrants are housed in the dispatch center. If our officers make an arrest on a warrant, they're bringing the prisoner to Waterford, then either they have to leave Waterford to come back to our dispatch center, or another officer has to go get the warrant, bring it over to Waterford. You know, so really you're tying up officers from doing the patrol work that they're meant to do on a frequent basis, really for, you know, what turns into an inefficient situation. That's just one of many, many things. If an officer stops a car, there's a packet of information that has to go to court with that. All of that is run by dispatch, but now we have to send an officer to the dispatch center to pick up that information because the dispatch center is not in the lobby of the police department. So you can't just walk up and get it as you should, or as every other police department does. We have to drive across town to pick up that information, to bring it back, to attach it to the summons to go to court. So, you know, the list goes on and on for those operational inefficiencies that we currently have.
So anytime that happens, I mean, there's one less officer on the road, right?
Certainly. You're increasing the downtime of the
Yep.
officers.
Okay.
And Chief, might be good to point out too that it's not by choice the warrants are up there.
No.
It's, they have to be there, as well as you, and same thing with certain material that you print out that has, you know, criminal backgrounds. You can't just fax that.
Certainly. So it's an FBI requirement when there is an arrest warrant. When there is a hit on that warrant, you have a very short window where there has to be a 24-hour facility that confirms that that warrant is actually valid, and that's what the dispatch center has to do. So let's say, you know, Meriden Police Department stops somebody we have a warrant for. We have a very, very tight window to confirm that warrant. You can only do that if you're physically checking the actual warrant itself. You cannot do that from a remote location. You also cannot do it from another agency housing your warrants. That didn't work when we examined that route. So that certainly is an obstacle to some operations.
Chief, we have some great professionals, career people at dispatch that you inherited as you inherited your job. And we also have many, many part-timers. My question is, how much of your work or your designees' work, what, you know, percentage, I don't know if that's the way I should ask it, or time, but give us an idea of what it means to supervise, manage the dispatch center. I mean, are you in constant contact? Is it a daily thing? I know there's scheduling issues all the time.
It's multiple times a day. We have a sergeant that's assigned to oversee the dispatch center, but that sergeant is in, I don't want to say constant contact and conversation, but is a regular back and forth conversation. Again, doing it across town, doing it via phone, rather than doing it face to face. Or, you know, when we do face to face, it's traveling across town to do it. You know, having been in the situation of having your dispatch center in the front of your building, and any police administrator can speak to this, there is certainly a better managerial style when you could walk up to the front of your building and speak one-on-one with your employees immediately, rather than having to travel across town or, you know, do that by phone. So, you know, there are inefficiencies in just the managerial aspect of that, you know, by having off-site locations.
Yeah, I see police cars often at dispatch centers. So I know that, you know, we have one sergeant who doesn't get on the road. He's an administrative sergeant, but everybody else is a working sergeant.
And a lot of
They're
times
not
you
desk
go by and see
jockeys.
that car, that's those officers going and getting those printouts in physical packets of information they need for their criminal cases, for court paperwork. So,
Right.
you know, that's a requirement that we're
Right.
going up there and doing that, because, you know, they're not in our building and we don't have access to do, or they're doing it for us, but we have to go pick that up.
Thank you. That's, you know, we talked about opportunity, you know, we were talking about bringing these groups together. You know, you're also, when you became, and so you all know, so when Dick Morris retired, was that around the same time you came on board?
No, it was
After.
about 8 months after.
After. We needed an emergency management director, and we, in most towns, will choose their chief of police. We did as well. We gave Mike a stipend, a rather small one. And you became our emergency management director too, which encompasses a whole lot more responsibility. Because we're a nuclear town too, so there's all these reports and all these drills and all the stuff that goes along with emergency management. He's assisted by the fire marshal's office and Julie Wilson as well. But again, different locations. and even the emergency operations center is not in a place that you even work at. So for you to get files, for you to do the work, yes, Julie's there, but for you to be hands-on, I know that's a difficult situation. This solves all that, and when you start checking off the boxes of what's good about this plan, there's a lot of boxes checked off, and very few, if any, negative.
That raises another
Yeah.
question. And so, with this new facility, right now, for evidence, that's all housed over in Waterford,
That's correct.
correct?
Yes.
And so, with the new facility, you would be in control of evidence in a criminal case.
Currently, our evidence officer is in control, however, we don't house it.
You don't house it.
We have to manage the evidence that's housed in an off-site location, which in and of itself has inefficiencies to it and some issues. We certainly manage, we work very closely with the examiner of seized property for the state. We're in compliance with everything. However, it is not a highly efficient system. Our detective is at Waterford PD often having to do evidence rather than doing it inside of our own facility, where now he's accessible to his own computer, his own, getting back to his office within seconds versus, 15 minutes to get back.
Let me ask you this, if you're able to house evidence in your own facility, does that help in chain of custody issues that you might face down the road when you're working with the prosecutor's office?
Certainly it can. Currently, the officers are putting it directly into the evidence room. The only delay is our detective then has to go over there, take it out of the temporary evidence, and place it into our section of the evidence room. If we housed it in our own facility, that would be much more seamless. There would be far less delay in getting that from the temporary evidence into permanent evidence. So, we haven't had any issues. I don't foresee us having issues. However, I think it's far more efficient to do it under one roof because it certainly is much easier that way.
Thank you.
I just have a couple more things.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything that we haven't asked you that we should have? In other words, is there anything you know that we don't know?
You'd have to get in the microphone if you want to answer that. If there is an answer to that. Yeah. So,
I can't think of anything. No, well, we talk about the current building. I know many of you and many in the audience have availed themselves of the opportunity to go through for a tour if you need any further convincing of the condition the building is in. However, there is another open house available on Saturday, this Saturday, the 26th.
yeah, that is this Saturday?
Yeah, this
okay.
Saturday, the 26th, from 1 to 3. So, and the viewing audience also, all are invited. And you'll be able to ask some more specific questions if necessary. But as far as any other information that we have, I can't think of anything that jumps to mind. We tried to cover some of them. We've covered them in the forums. As the excellent educator that you are, you sort of put us on the spot, and we're trying to...
It's my job.
Yeah.
If you remember from 8th grade, it's my
I
job.
do, Mrs. Hardy, I do. And that's why I'm a nervous wreck trying to answer your question. I'm back in that time period, which is, it's a while.
Yes.
Imagine what it's like to sit next to her.
Oh,
Well, he's after having her as a teacher.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I also see that we have our Director of Finance here, and I wonder if we could ask her to give us the breakdown again, which she did once before, about the cost of this, if we were to get the $6 million, the cost of this to the average taxpayer, and if there's any change in those figures.
As Ann is coming up to the podium, you have some, I don't know if we pulled those out or not. There is one, we pulled those